Abdul Baki. Hi. Hi, guest speaker. I can see you, Faith. Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining so early. Hi, Mariam. How are you? Thank you for joining so early. Hi, Faith. I'm trying to send you the request for video. Hi, Yunus. Thank you for joining so early. Oh. So these are first timers. Should we have a gift? Thank you so much, Abdubaki, Mariam, and Yunus. Okay. I sent you an invitation. Kindly accept it so you can turn on your video. Hi, Adonai Apparels. Thank you so much for joining so early. We keep the time. We are very early birds. Okay, Faith video. You are unable to join. Will you resend the invitation or should I accept it again? You should be able to join now. I think, can you see me now? Yes, can. Hi, Faith. Good to see you. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome to the Impact Hub live series. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so we're going to start exactly by 1 minute. Miss Unduku, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you for joining us as well. Who is this program? I'm not going to do that. I can see Elijah. Thank you for joining us as well. I believe that a lot of this live series are writers. And I know that some people Yes, so it's exactly fine. Hello and good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the Hub, the Impact Hub live series. This is the first series, and I will be the host for today. My name is Adeyemi Shukrofermi. So this series will hold every month, and for this month, we are going to have Miss Faith Uzuegbu, who is going to talk to us about writers in nature. Tech world, everybody tech. Tech is the new money. And you know, the first major challenge is right that future right now that we have a deep emerging I think your audio is breaking. Okay. Can you hear me? It's fading in and fading out. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Probably it's just my network. Let me try this. I hope you can hear me. Yes. Okay, great. Well, did you hear what I said earlier? I need to be sure. I heard something about ChatGPT and AI and the global village, but I think I heard it out a couple of times. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just trying to, bring up an introduction to this discussion as how we need to be very, very conscious when we are writing as writers and in the tech age that we are. So So that was my first question. That was, what do you think is the most important changes in the writing landscape due to technological advancement? So what are those changes in writing due to technology?
Okay, I mean, you already mentioned the first obvious one, which is AI, ChatGPT. I mean, unless you're living under a rock, you must have seen ChatGPT, used it. Maybe if you're a student to speed up assignments or even at work, draft emails and all that stuff. So that's like the major thing that people who write as a profession are concerned about. Like, how would this affect like the profession? Is this even something that people want to hire or pay for in the future? Is AI going to eat all our jobs and basically render us jobless, and we have to like go back to the farms or find something else to do with our talent? So that's like the major thing that writers are concerned about. The other thing is just really about the impact side of things, especially if you're a writer in tech. There's always that creative spirit that wants you to, that you feel like you're choosing between being creative and writing to make money for a business. So always having to keep that balance and trying to figure out like, how do I enjoy my life as a creative person, but still make money? Like, if you want to write poetry, you can probably make money from poetry, but it might have a longer time span. Versus if you say you're writing for a tech company, you feel like you can make your money easily, but you might not write on the things or the topics that you really enjoy. So you might be writing on very boring things like insurance and software and all those things. They're not things you're passionate about, but you have to find a way to blend your passion for writing with the business goals of who you're writing for, so that you can actually make money. So it's always it's kind of hard to balance, especially when you get started. You feel like you have to choose one or the other. But when you do it for some time, you just find a way around it. It's really about transferring your skills from being that fiction or poetry obsessed writer to like picking out the things that actually make your writing stick, or what really stands out to you as a writer, and then transferring that into a different topic or subject altogether. So it's always about keeping that balance. And then AI, of course, AI is coming for everyone. So if you write, that's like the first use case for AI. So it's kind of hard to really think about how can you differentiate yourself as a writer. How can you make sure that your work or your skill is something that businesses will still want to pay for, even though they have this tool that can do it for 1/10 of your price and 50 times faster than you can. So yeah, so those are like the major things I've seen so far. Yeah.
That's a lot. I saw someone equally talking about words that you, I probably because I did not. I'm making money in writing, and that was so interesting. That what are the opportunities that us can leverage in tech? So what are those opportunities for writing? So I've seen a lot of people that they just say, oh, I'm a writer. What exactly can I do? Asking people to call me for writing, because there is ChatGPT, because there is AI, because there is hate story, apps now, they don't really need
Okay, so the question, what are the opportunities for writers in tech? Yeah. So I would say, first of all, as a writer, know that your skill can apply to a range of industries. So the first thing I would really say is find out what kind of writing you want to do. There are so many niches or opportunities. You can be a writer in tech, you can be a journalist, you can be so much. You can be a script writer, an academic writer, all of that stuff. So the first thing you really want to figure out is the type of writing that you have interest in. Can you hear me? Okay. So once you figure out the type of writing that you want to do, and let's say it's tech, you want to be a writer in tech. Um, then you can then start to look at the opportunities within the tech industry. Within tech itself, there are a lot of options for you, right? There's B2B writing, which is there's B2C writing, there's SaaS writing. So there are a lot of very fancy things that people say that is really just one traditional industry layering tech on top of it. So you can really be like a fintech writer, you can be an insure tech writer, you can be a health writer, you can be a software as a service writer, you can write for product companies, you can write about all sorts of things. There's so many options. So really, once you figure out that you actually want to write in tech, then the next thing you want to do is choose the niche you want to write in. I mean, another thing to notice, there isn't really a one size fits all approach to this thing. So sometimes you just dabble into writing, and over time you find out like the kind of writing that you actually enjoy, or the type of writing that you are passionate about, or the one that, I mean, you're really happy to stay up all night and work on. So most people start off from generalist, writing anything, and then start to, as they get deeper, they start to see, okay, this is, I really don't like to write about health. I don't understand half of the things I read when I have to write about it. So, but when I'm writing about fintech, for instance, it's more interesting. So I want to be like a fintech writer. So really, it's really about trying what you want to do. Like once you narrow down to a broad niche, then you can start to find out the specifics of that niche to help you, first of all, to brush up your skills, and second of all, to make money. So because no one is really going to pay you. I mean, people will pay you for mistakes, definitely, but I mean, at a certain level, people, if you want to make a lot of money from writing or from doing anything at all, you need to be able to, what's the word now? You need to be able to convince people to pay you, like to pay you top dollars for writing stuff. And especially now that you have AI and all of that stuff, you need to be able to convince whoever is paying you that it's much better for you to pay me X amount to write this particular article than for you to use ChatGPT to do it yourself. Because now you're not competing on time or cost. Like you want to make money and you want to prove that you're better than the machines. So it's really important for you to like develop your skills and pay attention to skill development as much as you pay attention to making money. Because there's a lot of advice out there that will really tell you just have to charge money, or start once they ask you how much you are charging, just call a ridiculous amount, fake it until you make it. But that's like very hard. It's better for you to know how much people are willing to pay for your skill, the skill that you have, and then charge for it. And then as you get better, you can start to increase your rates, increase your prices to get more. As you get more clients, or as you get fancier clients, it's not a one size fits all approach, really, but the most important thing you should pay attention to is understanding the niche you're writing for, honing the skills for that niche you're writing for, writing and getting samples, getting people to become repeat customers, and people that are willing to say, write this stuff for me. And then when you turn it in, they're willing to say, okay, I love that, write another stuff for me. That starts to sound and serve as social proof. And then you can take all of that fancy testimony and all of that fancy feedback and then use it to pitch another client that is just a step higher and say, I've been working for this person, they love my work, we've been at it for 3 to 6 months. How about I write for you? Like, these are the samples. This is what you've said about my work. Now you have social proof to demand higher prices. But if you just go, I want to just make money and you really don't do the groundwork, it can be frustrating because you just find yourself at the ceiling and you're not breaking through because like nobody's willing to pay you a lot of money. I mean, nobody pays you money for doing nothing. So you have to find out what people are willing to pay for and get those skills that would get them happy to open their purse and give you the money you're asking for.
That's really great. And from what you said, the most important thing is for them to have expertise, have that competence in writing. They should be good at what they do. And they should be able to use that to convince people that they are better to do it than AI doing. And also, I think a major thing that I also hold on to is sharing testimonies. So it would be good to ask people, okay, how was the job? How did I do? Did you like what I wrote for you? And then just send it out to your social media so that people can see that, oh, you're doing this and you're good at it. That is really great. Thank you so much for sharing on that. So you mentioned some kind of categories of writing. So would you like to talk to us about this? So what are the aspects or what are the niches that people can create, that people can venture into? So, okay, please, question. Before you answer that question, I've been seeing some questions in the chat box. To make it much more easier for us, please, there is an icon, there is a question box. Please click on it and drop your question there. So I can easily pick it up from there. Thank you so much. Yeah, so you can go ahead, Faye.
Okay, yeah. So your question about different types of writing. Honestly, there's so much. I can not possibly list out everything on the call, but I'll just say the ones that come top of mind. I do know there are a lot of writers I admire that are journalists. So basically, they work with more, or they do more feature writing, interview pieces, and all of that. They see a social situation, they interview people involved, and then they write a feature story highlighting a kind of really fancy news story with the sources and all of that. So that's like journalistic pieces. That's not what I do. Then there are people who write for businesses, who write for tech businesses, for instance. And then within tech itself, there are so many niches, there are so many. I mean, it's uncountable. Just think of any traditional business you're thinking about. It is probably possible to layer tech on top of it and make it a tech business. So even if you are an insurance company, you can start to offer health tech, you can start to offer insure tech, so start to offer fintech. Then you can think about product side services where you're selling software as a service, where you're selling services as products. For instance, you are maybe, let's say, let's use the topic at hand. You're a writer, and then you can create packages about your writing and say, okay, if you want me to write 5 articles a month for you, you're going to pay me 2,000 naira for it, for instance. And then if you want me to write 10 articles, you're going to pay me 4,000. And then you create those kind of levels for different packages. You put it on a website, people can go there, just click on it, buy it, and get their writing. Like, that's a productized service. So that's also a niche that somebody can write for. There are also like more layered industry, like when you even think about the more complex ones like engineering, biotechnology, all of that stuff, you can write for those companies. So there's really a lot of options. It really depends on what you want to niche to. And if you're not niching to a particular topic, then you probably have to be a very good researcher to be able to jump on different topics and write about them. So there's a lot of learning involved. There isn't it's not a one size fits all approach. There are so many things, so many options. You can write about anything. You can write about hair. You can write about makeup, fashion. Just the most ridiculous things. You can write about. I mean, food, cybersecurity, dating apps, social media, edtech, like anything, like any company that is doing marketing services or selling a product in tech will probably need a writer to create content for them. If they're not doing blog, right? If they don't have a blog, most people have a blog because of SEO. They want to rank and get visibility. But if they don't have a blog, they're probably going to have salespeople, and those salespeople will want to have materials they can use for selling. They can say, "Oh, I want a white paper. I want something I could give to customers, and they just read and understand what I'm selling, so that it makes my sales process faster." And they're going to need somebody to write it for them. Some companies that just do research and they gather data, provide research services to other companies. So they help those companies to gather data, analyze the data, and then put everything into like a fancy report that they can use for marketing. Those companies also hire writers because somebody needs to do the interview, someone needs to interpret the data, someone needs to write all those stuff. So there's so much, like, even if you choose a particular niche, if you choose fintech, you can decide to just be creating short form copy, like what you see on social media platforms and stuff. You can decide to be a landing page writer, like a UX writer, where you're writing website content and app content. You can decide to do just white papers. You can decide to do just ebooks and reports. You can decide to do blog posts. So it's really about understanding the opportunities and what the industry would actually need you to do, and then what your skill can actually like the skill you have, and how much they're willing to pay, because money is important, let's not lie. Money is very important. So you want to make sure that you're in a niche that's willing to open their purse and pay a lot of money for what you're writing. And sometimes that involves switching niches to an industry that you're writing actually makes more money for, or doing the difficult work, doing the writing that people are willing to pay more for because of just how much of skill and complexity it requires. So you have a lot of options. You can be a travel writer if you love traveling. You can be I'm trying to think of the most the most ridiculous things that some people might not even think of writing for. Is to write songs. As long as there's an industry and that they're trying to sell something, they probably need a writer. You just have to figure out, one, how much they're willing to pay, like how much the industry or that industry itself, what's the average amount they're willing to pay writers. And then two, is there more expert level work, more complex work that you can do to make more money from them? If yes, then you can upskill, get the skill, and then can tell them, oh, I'm one of the few people that can actually do this for you. So can you pay me times 10 of what you're paying others, because I can actually get this done for you. So so I mean, so many options, just really need to find what works for you.
Oh wow, that's a lot, really, it's a lot. And I really like the fact that you talked about research. So it depends. Writing is wide. So if you want to major in so many things, that means you have to research. You need to know something before you can write something. That's so fast. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So it depends on what you are interested in, right? It depends on what you like. It depends on probably the company that you like to work for. So I even believe that I feel nearly all companies need a writer one way or the other, because they would want to document some things, they want to publicize their products, they will have marketing departments. So there is something to be done. Wow, thank you so much for that. I didn't even know that you were going to talk about monetary aspects, and I'm actually going to ask that. So, for me, for instance, having a background in English, and yes, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Faith graduated from law school as a student of 2018, right, from the Department of English. So, a lot of people having English as a background. And then, people naturally believe that, okay, you can write. So they now become, please write this for me, write this for me. Without, how much do you want to charge? How much should that give you? Okay, let me give you a token. Even if I'm not asking for money, how do I counter that situation? Or should I say, how do I charge people for writing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, usually there are three major ways that people charge for writing. They either charge per word, they charge per project, or they charge per hour. So charging per word means if you tell me, oh, you're going to write 1,000 words, and I charge you for every word, and that's like the most popular type of costing or pricing system for writers. And then there are people that charge per project, meaning you give them the entire project and they say, okay, because of how much work is involved in this project, I'm going to charge you X amount or Y amount. And then there are those that also charge per hour, and that's basically saying, oh, it's going to take me 10 hours to finish this, so I'm going to charge you X naira per hour and stuff. So when I started writing, the first ever writing gig I got was they were paying me 500 naira per article. Please don't charge 500 naira in this age and time. Don't do it. But when I got my first ever writing gig, I think that was in 2017. It was 500 naira per article, and I think the article was about 1,000 words. So if you do the math, it's terrible. So don't do that to yourself. Nobody should be charging 500 naira in 2024, please. But yeah, it really depends again on the complexity of the work and the amount the organizations are willing to pay you. I mean, generally, if you're trying to break into the international market, most organizations will charge you, or most people would be willing to pay beginner writers about $50 to $100 per article. So let's say 1,000 word article, you can be getting $50 to $100. And then as you become bigger, you can then set your rates to however or whatever you want to set your rates to. So, but I mean, if you're breaking into the international market now, like you don't have any clips at all, or you just have very minimal clips or something you wrote on Medium and you're trying to use it to land your first client, most people want to pay you 50 to, 50 to $100 per article, and I think that's I mean I would So for US companies or European companies or Asian companies, they have a kind of a larger market, a more advanced market, and more need for writers. So they're probably willing to pay more money. For Nigerian companies, they might not be willing to pay as much as the European company, because I mean, how do you work up to a Nigerian company and say, hey, I need you to give me 70,000 naira for this article? It can be a difficult conversation. But what you want to make sure is that you're just really pushing us to, you're not just changing yourself, you're finding out like what's like the average for the market you're targeting, and then you're fixing your rate on that based on your skill, of course, and your clips and all of that. And then as you get more advanced, you can raise your rates and get better clients. I think that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It really does. Thank you so much for that. So it depends on the market. It depends on the company. So I think maybe should I say that writers are underrated in Nigeria, or should I say Nigerian companies do not know the worth of writers, because they just give them any amount or just feel that they should be able to do it for free, something that is my own profession. And it is a lot of international gigs. I hope writers will see to that. So to my next question, I want to use personal experiences to tell us how it is important for writers to, contextualize their writing according to the digital platform that they're writing for. I mean, how can they, let's say there is someone, maybe me for instance, I want to write on a lot of things, and then I want to work as a freelance writer. And then I'm working for about 2, 3 companies at a time. So how important is it, or how can I contextualize my writing to these and make it suit them, to that company, and make it suit to them? I hope you understand my question.
Yeah. So basically, how do you make sure your writing caters to the different clients you're working with? Especially if you're a freelance writer, I mean, especially as freelance writers, you're probably going to be juggling like 3 to 5 clients at every given point. So, and each clients can have different requirements. I mean, the easiest way to do this is to just make sure that you work within the same niche. If you're working within the same niche, the terminology, the audience you're writing for is probably the same. So it's going to be very easy for you to code switch and context switch. The other way to do this is to make sure that you're working with people who have brand guidelines. So brand guidelines are basically a set of rules that guide your writing, that tell you the audience you're writing for, what that company likes to see in their writing, what they don't like to see, the kind of words or phrases you should use, what you shouldn't use. I mean, basically think of it like a holy book for writing for a specific company. If you have brand guidelines, then you can use that to always make sure that what you're writing adheres to the specific kind of content that that company wants to see. So if the company doesn't give you brand guidelines, you have to figure out creating your own. Like once you get feedback from your editor or whoever you're writing for, you can use that to basically create a document that highlights things that they don't want to see in your writing, things that they do want to see, the kind of phrases. If your editor has marked basically flagged the statement a couple of times, you include it in your brand guideline that that shouldn't be in their writing, all of that stuff. So So make sure you have brand guidelines you're working with. Either the company gives you one or you create one based on the feedback you're getting from the client. Two, work as much as possible. Try to work within the same niche. If you're working within the same niche, you probably have similar target. You're probably talking to the same target audience over and over again, and it can you're understanding the terminologies for that particular industry. So you could just marry the two together and you're never really straying away from what you're familiar with. So those are like the two easiest ways to basically stay on track. I mean, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't go off track sometimes. You're not God, you're a writer. But it just means that it would reduce how much, reduce the amount of feedback or the amount of having to work on pieces over and over again just because you're not meeting the mark or you're mixing up stuff. And also make sure you edit your work. Don't turn in work you haven't edited. If possible, make sure you're editing work that you have slept on for a couple of hours. So don't just write and turn in your work. Unless you're writing for a niche that maybe your client have been working with so many times that you've worked with them for so long that you really know what they want. But I mean, even at that, it's always advisable that you're turning in work that you've had some time to sleep on, because then you can look at it with fresh eyes and see where you must have missed out something or something that you didn't really nail at the first draft or something like that. But really, as much as possible, sometimes when you get started, you might not be working with an editor or a trained editor. You might be working directly with a client who doesn't know so much about writing or honing your craft. But I mean, putting these little things in place like brand guidelines, internal guidelines, editing your work a few hours after you've written it just helps you to remove avoidable mistakes and limit how much back and forth you have with that client.
Oh, great. Great. That's really amazing. Thank you so much. So, are there, let's say, apps that they can use in terms of editing? Because I feel there are some writers that do not really know how to edit. I don't know how that really works. But does it? It's somehow, if you're a writer, you don't know how to edit. Is that possible? Or I say, how can somebody who is a writer probably edit his own work? Maybe there are some software apps, or giving it out to somebody to edit for you, and then you make payment to them. What do you have to say on that?
I mean, first thing, there are a lot of writers who are not good editors. Editing is a very different skill from writing. And it's really so. I mean, the fact that you're a writer doesn't mean you're going to be a good editor unless you get trained to edit. So, I mean, a lot of people feel like because you can write, that means you can edit. And well, while you may have actually, like, you may have an idea of, okay, maybe the grammatical aspects of the work and all. But when it comes to being like the structural editing part of it, if you're not trained to do it, you will not be able to do it. So, I mean, the best way to learn how to edit is to work with an editor. An editor, like, as they give you feedback for your articles, then you can really understand what they look out for as they edit your work. And working with an editor is different from working with the marketing. Okay, I'm probably rambling by now, but sometimes when you're a freelancer, you're working with a client. And then that client can be like maybe the head of marketing or the CEO or something. That client might not be a trained editor. For many times, it's not a trained editor. So if they're giving you feedback that your writing is beautiful and it's lovely and everything, they're deceiving you because they are looking at it from the business perspective. Okay, does this check the boxes I want to for my business? It checks the boxes. They're happy with it. But then, if you have an editor in the process, and that person is really trained to look at your work from a structural point of view, and then from the whole line editing point of view. In fact, many times you may have an editor and then you have a copy editor, and then that's when your life becomes very complicated. But the truth is, as a writer, you want to find yourself in a situation where your work is going through an editor, copy editor, before it eventually gets to the client. Because while the client can give you feedback on the piece from a business perspective, The editor can give you will give you feedback on the piece from a structural perspective. Who is the audience you are writing for? If you're writing for this type of audience, then we shouldn't be using this type of words because this is below the audience or this is above the audience. Or this paragraph isn't answering the heading. And since the paragraph isn't answering the heading, we need to add some examples to answer the heading. Oh, this isn't layered correctly. This heading isn't flowing into the next heading, so you need to switch up. I mean, some of the things they pick out are very annoying, but I mean, if you work with an editor, it becomes and you get that feedback, then it's a lot easier for you to self-edit your work because you can look at your work after you've written it and then switch off your writer brain to your editing brain and just look at it from the editing point of view and say, this probably badly. I love this sentence, but it has to go. Like I can't keep it here. Not just beautiful words that writers like to include. An editor will take it out. Your writer brain would not want to take it out. You want to keep it there because it sounds fancy. But an editor is going to scrap it out and replace it with a very ordinary sentence that will make your brain boil and you're so pissed. But because it makes the piece better. So the best way to learn how to edit is to work with an editor or take courses. There are a lot of editing courses that teach you how to look at the work from an editing point of view, not from a writing point of view. And I mean, even though if you write it, you probably know what to look out for, but chances are when you work with a trained editor, they know how to look at the work holistically. They know how to remove themselves from your work and just look at it from this very strict, neutral person that just wants the best for the work. So working with an editor is the best way to learn how to edit. Like learn how to edit, not just surface level things, but really knowing how to look at a piece and question every sentence and make sure that it actually adds up to something that makes sense for the audience. So you can learn how to edit by taking courses, by by using apps. So you were asking about apps. Grammarly is a good one. Grammarly can help you look at your work from line editing, copy editing point of view. So all those verbs and adverbs and all those things that are not agreeing in your sentence. Line editing or copy editing can help you make sense of all that. Then you can use a tool like ChatGPT to edit your work. You can give it a prompt of maybe I want you to look at this work and highlight things that are not well explored or things that are incomplete or things that don't add up or something. ChatGPT can help you to do that. So use AI to edit your work, but the best way is really to make sure that you're working with an editor. And if you're not working with an editor, if you have to self-edit, try to sleep on the work. And when you're looking at it from a fresh, like once you wake up and your brain is still really fresh, take a look at it, like just read it aloud and really see if your beautiful sentences actually make sense or if you need to take them out. But that's like the easiest way. Use apps, sleep on your work and edit. And as much as possible, try to work with an editor. Put your regularly into situations that put you right in front of an experienced editor who will basically tear up your work many times, but at the end of the day, you'll be better for it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Faith. That was really deep. I remember the particular time that you told me about sleeping over the work and then maybe after a day or 2 days, just take it back. You're going to see a lot. That's if you want to edit it yourself. But most times it is actually good to give it to another person, to have someone to edit it for you. So that person can edit it from the point of view of an editor, not as a writer. Thank you very much. And yes, she said Grammarly is a good way to, a good app rather, to edit words. And when you mentioned ChatGPT, so I was just wondering that particular AI that seems to put your job on a thread is still that same app that can save your life from people. So I was just trying to wrap that in my head, using ChatGPT to edit your work. That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing, Faith. So finally, before I go to the questions in the chat box, what are the emerging technologies that you foresee shaping the future of writing? So you've been in the writing space for years now. So what are those things that you foresee writing? Let's say in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Like I mentioned, AI is not going to slow down. So we're going to see a lot of AI doing a lot of really entry level work. It kind of makes things more, I mean, it's not what I like, but it makes things a bit harder for people who are trying to break in because most businesses would rather pay or rather use an AI tool to write like the basic things instead of hiring an entry level writer to do it. So we're going to see like a lot of people trying to really upskill fast to try to do like more complex writing. And it actually makes sense because, I mean, if you've been writing for some time, it makes sense for you to start to look at the kind of writing that is really human focused and not like something that AI can really just replicate. So if you've been writing for some time, you want to look at moving from writing what is AI, for instance, to more complex type of writing that really involve leaning on your experience, interviewing people, talking to people, more complex pieces, whatever that might look like in your industry. You want to try to use it because while a lot of people will start to use AI for the basic stuff, it just simply means that humans have the opportunity to kind of take on the more experienced stuff. And once you start taking up the more experienced stuff, but things that are more complex, you can charge more money, can make more money. So, I mean, you want to start looking at what are the more complex things, what is the industry shifting from? If the companies are using AI to do these basic pieces, what are they not comfortable using AI to do yet? And then once you figure out what they don't want to use AI for yet, then you can start to learn those skills and then try to upskill into that. So I do feel like, I mean, the industry is going to change, especially with the use of all of this artificial intelligence and all that stuff. But it's still going to have space for humans. So if you're trying to break into writing, don't see it as, oh, AI is about to take all our lunch, so I might as well do something else. I mean, if you really want to do writing, then you just have to look for what your industry is demanding at this point in time, and trying to get the skills for it. So apart from I don't really think, I think every other thing that's going to happen in the industry will be somewhat tied to the use of artificial intelligence and the kind of work it takes on and the kind of work that starts to open up for more human writers to do. But I mean, in terms of opportunities, they'll still be there, but maybe not in the way they were some 7 years ago, where people would probably prefer to. Another thing is a lot of people are actually going to become like AI prompters and AI editors and all that stuff. Because if businesses are using AI to do like first drafts, they'll probably need people who can edit those first drafts to be readable for humans and stuff. So you're going to have a lot of people becoming AI editors, and then you're also going to have a lot of people who are like prompters, writing prompts and all that stuff, who can prompt AI tools to bring out like reasonable responses and drafts that people can edit to use for businesses. So those are kind of opportunities that start to open up. So I mean, if you like ChatGPT, you can start to learn how to really prompt ChatGPT and do like ask all the questions to get it to respond and give you the most reasonable responses and all that stuff. But if you're not a fan of ChatGPT, you could probably start to learn how to edit AI drafts to be reasonable and do it quickly so you can save businesses money and they're happy to employ you to do that kind of stuff if they're really producing those kind of pieces. And then you can start to look at doing more complex work for that AI or businesses will not be happy or comfortable to outsource to AI so that you can charge more for doing that and you can take your skills to more complex areas. I know if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yes. It's really makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing the future in with us writing. So I want us to go through the questions and bylines as proof concepts when pitching to prospects.
Okay, I didn't get the question. Can you read it again?
Do you really need bylines as proof of concept when pitching to prospects? I think what it's trying to say is if you need your, I say your of what you do when you are teaching people that that employ you as a writer?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it really depends. If you you don't always need bylines, but you do need samples. You can't preach without samples. You need samples of your work. They might not be bylines. Some people are willing to. In fact, some people would rather employ writers with raw drafts, like non-edited work, so they can actually see what your skill looks like before it passes through an editor. Before an editor makes it look pretty. So you don't always need bylines. You don't always have to have your name on some pretty website and stuff. If you can get that, it's fine. But if you can't, a Medium sample, a Substack sample, or something in Google Docs can help you to land work. Because people want to see that you can write. So even if your name is not on it, you're not published on the website, it really doesn't matter, especially if you're trying to break in. But if you're broken in, you should definitely aim at getting bylines, because someone can see your work on the website, read it, and reach out to you to work with you because they like what they saw. So that actually helps you. But if you're just starting it, don't sweat too much about getting bylines. You should be more bothered about having samples that you can use to show people that you know what you're doing.
Okay. So it's good to have samples of my work at hand at all times. Show people acquaintances with people who want to learn how to write. They just love writing, but they do not know how to do it. Is there any advice? Is there a platform where they can learn? Is there anything you would like to say to them? So I love to write. Or maybe, yes, I love to write, but I don't know how to write.
I mean, if you want to, the best way to learn how to write is to actually write. There's no pretty way to say it. You have to learn how to write. You don't want to be stuck in a learning cycle where you're just reading what people are doing, but you're not practicing. So the best way to learn how to write is to open your Google Doc or your notepad or whatever and write the ugliest thing you can think of. I mean, write those ugly things that you really don't want anybody to see. Write them and send them out to people to give you feedback. And then as you learn, try to incorporate what you learn from other people's work into your own. But there's no way for you to learn how to write without writing. It's not maths. It's not maths that you go to bury your head in general maths and hope that see how your teacher does it. Everybody has their different writing style. You want to find the style you are comfortable with, and then you can start to refine it. But you want to find the thing that makes your writing sound like you, the thing that makes your writing you. And the only way to find it is by doing it. So write. If you want to learn how to write, just start to call yourself a writer and write stuff and publish them for people to see. And then read work from people that you admire in the niche that you're trying to get into. And as you read and you see certain things, how they write their intros, how they transition from one paragraph to another, how they craft conclusions, as you see those things, try to copy it. Don't copy what you wrote. Copy the style. See the style. Try to test it in your writing. Oh, they started their conclusion with a story, so I'm going to try to start my conclusion of this with a story and see how that goes. So read from other people's work, and then practice. And as much as possible, try to get feedback from people who are actually doing the thing, or people who are willing to pay you. Because nothing motivates you more than money. So get feedback from people who want to pay you. Like, we want to pay you, but it has to be good. And then suddenly you see yourself, you're Shakespeare, you're writing stuff, because now money is involved. So try to get yourself in a position where people are paying you to learn. You can do that by freelancing, by interning, but just try to get yourself into something that holds you accountable to the kind of writing you're doing, so that you are forced to do it whether you like it or not. If you really want to write, like if you're not in a formal situation that forces you to write, it's easy to just push things away. I don't want to write today, I won't do it, I'll do it tomorrow. But if somebody tells you have to study this draft by 5 p.m. and we're going to pay, when you think of the money that is coming after that 5 p.m., you will commit to writing the draft, and you commit to writing no matter how hard it's going to be. So yeah, that's my best advice.
Okay. So first, you need to write, and write. The best way to learn how to write is to write. And then send it to people to check for you. You can also ask people back, publish your work for people to see, and that's even how you can have profit and have money coming to you. And you've answered the next question that I really want to ask. So I'm going to ask a question that I can see here, and I'm going to reshape that, like retweet that question to people that, writers that at a point in time they don't want to check any software app, they don't want anything to write what they want to write for them. But then they have writer's block. So how did they come out of that problem? So now I want to write. I want to write by myself. I don't want to use ChatGPT. I don't want to use Graph. I don't want to use anything. I want to write it by myself. But then I'm faced with writer's block. What do I do?
Okay. When you have writer's block, it's one of two things. One, you're tired, and what you need to do is sleep, or watch a movie on Netflix, or take a walk. Two, you don't know enough about that topic. So your brain is grasping at straws and you're trying to write what you don't understand. If it's the first one, if you're tired, sleep. Don't force yourself to, because you write rubbish. I've been doing this for quite some time and I know that forcing yourself to write is a recipe for disaster. There's a difference between wanting, like, if you're tired, you know that you're tired, you're looking at this draft, your brain isn't just working, like, just leave it. Which is why it's advisable to try and don't write on your deadlines, because if you're writing on your deadlines, then you're not going to be able to give your brain the space when it's like, I'm not working today. That's why you start to use ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will write rubbish for you. And when ChatGPT write rubbish for you, your clients will now you don't want to be in that situation. So what you need to do is make sure you're starting those drafts early, so that if you have writer's block, you can have enough rest and you can write at the time that your brain is really optimized to write. So you want to make sure that you're writing, like, if you're a morning person, you want to make sure you're getting to that draft as soon as you wake up, so that you're writing with like a fresh brain. If you're a night person, you want to make sure you're writing at night. So you want to make sure you're writing at the most optimized time for you. And then if the second one, you don't know enough about the topic, what you should be doing is that you should be trying to only write what you know. So don't start to write until you really understand what they ask you to write about. Like, do your research, read up what other people have written, understand how to, in fact, you should be able to understand something and explain it to somebody else like they are 5 years old before you start to write about it. And the third thing is, if you are lazy, or you don't just feel like, because some days you wake up and like, I don't want to see words today, or your topic is scary, what you should do is try to write something like in 10 minutes. Get your brain to write something in 10 minutes. Like, it doesn't have to be the prettiest sentence. It doesn't have to be the introduction or conclusion. Like, if you're stuck in a rut in writing the introduction, start to write the first or second or third section. Write the FAQs, write the conclusion. Just start from the easiest thing to write. You can write FAQs. FAQs are the easiest things to write. Just write that thing that appears at the end of the article when they answer some bunch of generic questions. Write FAQs. You can think of your brain like, it can be like a car that the battery is not working again, like the battery is tired. So when you fire the car, then it will start. So that's like, why just look for something within the structure that is really like low effort, high reward. Once you have words on the page that make sense, it's kind of a lot easier to do. Like, if you've done the resting and you've done the reading and you just feel like, I still don't want to write, like, just commit 10 minutes into writing that. And the last one is, it's probably not advice you should get, but if you don't want to do all these 3 things, the thing that will force you to write is that deadline. When you wake up and see that this article is due by 1 p.m. and you've not written one thing, you will see yourself, that draft you did not want to write for 1 week, you write it in 4 hours, because now the deadline is there. So if you don't want to be in that situation where you're writing and sweating on your chair and walking around your room because you know that a deadline is coming and you don't have any excuse to give, make sure start your drafts on time, do your research, give your brain time to rest, and do like low effort, high reward. Look for the easiest thing to write that just motivates you to keep going.
Wow. Lord, thank you so much. The pieces that you just shared. with writing blog. I really love something you said. You so because so
I can't hear you. I didn't get the question.
I'm saying I want
The importance of writing.
research. No,
Okay, the
the
importance
importance
of research as a writer.
the importance of reading for writing. You know, talk about that.
Okay, so the importance of reading and research for writing. Okay, I mean, I think I've kind of touched on it and what I've said, but the truth of the matter is you really cannot write anything that you don't understand. I mean, there's a very common thing people say. It's like writing is good thinking. So you don't have good writers, you have good thinkers. You have people that can understand and understand information, no matter how complex it is, and then distill it for the audience they are writing for, even if that's like a 5-year-old. So before you start to write anything, you want to make sure that you even understand what it is in the first place and what it is not. Because not enough to understand what it is. Oh, this thing works like this. You want, okay, how does it not work? So that you're not trying to make a point and then you start to make the point of this is how it works when it doesn't work that way. So you want to understand it two ways. So this is what this means. This is what this does not mean. So that I know that these are the things I need to stay clear of if I'm explaining this. You want to make sure that you are immersed into the industry of the audience you are writing for. So if you are writing for, let's say you're writing for a health business or a BP blood pressure testing machine business, you want to understand what the industry is. How are the people, the patients, or how are they talking about this particular condition? The businesses selling to them, how do they talk about it? If you're writing for very sensitive industries, or maybe you're writing for people with disabilities, or there's a lot of conversation around the kind of terms you use to describe certain conditions and all that stuff. So you need to know it, and you need to know when these things are getting updated. You need to know when they move from describing people with a certain condition as X to describing them as X plus one, because that could land your company in a lot of legal trouble and you just get a lot of backlash from people you're writing for because you're still describing us as X when we are now X plus one. So you want to make sure you are immersed into the industry you're writing for, as much as doing the research for the particular topic you're writing on. So do your research to understand what the topic is, what it's not, how it works, how it doesn't work, what are the terms that are used, and then do the research for the larger industry to understand what are the conversations happening there. How are the terminologies changing? How is the technology changing? How, if they used to define this as A, but now there's some new information, now they're defining it as A plus one. You need to know all those things and just immerse yourself into those conversations or that information space. So that whenever you're writing, you have like this residual knowledge in your brain that can just help you to understand the concepts a lot faster and you don't have to Google everything. And even if you want to use AI, you need to know the industry well enough so that when AI writes rubbish for you, you can say, AI, you are lying. It's not true. This is incorrect. And you can edit it. But if you don't know the industry well enough, AI will write nonsense for you. And when AI writes nonsense and you don't know, and then you pass it to your editor who really understands, you're just going to see red barrier everywhere. What is this? Why is this here? Why is this here? And you won't even be able to explain why it's there because you don't even know why it is there in the first place. So if you're going to be editing stuff, if you're going to be, I mean, if you want to write, you need to understand the industry and then understand the subject. With those two, you'll be fine. But if you don't do it, there's no shortcut. So be ready to do the work. to really understand that once you do the work, you commit to doing the work, it becomes a more interesting profession. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but it just becomes more bearable. I mean, you can be writing, you can be crying on your laptop, but at least you know what you're doing. It's much better than when you're writing and you're crying, but you're like, this is I don't know if I'm doing nonsense, but God help me, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, take control, because I don't know what I'm doing like this. So it just gets a lot easier when you do your research and you do the background work required. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. You said a lot. Very much. Thank you for contributing to this discussion. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for the experiences that you shared. The physical I have feel thank you very much. It's so good to have you here. And yes, so this is the end of Stage in Tech. So this series called Every Month. I hope we'll all join. So we're going to have another person to speak with us soon. You can follow my handle so that you can always get information whenever we have a discussion around anything whatsoever, and I believe that yes, you are going to learn one way or the other. Thank you so much once again, Faye. You can also follow Faye. She is a professional writer. If you have questions, and if you have questions to her, as you can think, or you think to me, so I can send it to her and then I send it back to you. So you can also send me messages on Instagram. Yeah, and I'm going to you. Thank you, Faith. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Thank you very much for joining. See you all next time. Thank you, Daniel Iyodo. I can see your comments. Thank you very much. So you can follow my handle, you can follow my page so that you can always get notification whenever another conversation is coming up. This is going to be every month, as I said. It is going to be every month and with different professionals in various aspects who will be talking to us about many things. So you can always join. You can follow, you definitely see the notification, you see the publicity, so you can always join every month. Thank you so much for joining once again. Bye.